Oh my God. I can't believe
Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful day. Celebrate a beautiful man. My name is Shel Zapkin. Emily, Rebecca, and Sophie asked that my son Danny and I welcome everyone and introduce this celebration. I've known John for 55 years. We went to junior high school, and college together. We lived together in San Francisco. We worked together during the summer. We got married the same year. Our families vacationed together. John was the best man at my wedding, and I was at his wedding. We are, and always will be, part of the gang, the Fremont class of 1966. There's Bob and Vern and Patty and Cliff and Gail, and Jim and Jack, Shel and John, and of course Clint, and our spouses and our kids, the gang. We go back a long way. Perhaps the most significant similarity between John and me is that we embody the Jewish and Catholic faith. I, born Jewish, married a nice Catholic girl, Patty. John, born Catholic, married a nice Jewish girl. What a wonderful heritage to have shared. The Shema is a prayer, a Jewish prayer, that bridges to the traditions of Christianity and Judaism. It is the first of the great commandments. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, one God. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. The Shema is a prayer of loves. This morning we're here to celebrate and honor the life of John Allan Nogue. We are here to affirm the bonds of community, memory, and hope that sustain us. We are here to hear the full reality of John. We all treasure his gifts and what he has given to us during his life. And as we listen to the stories people very close to John share, let us know that his spirit of love is always with us. John's life was a miracle. He was so special to all of us, a true gift from God. He was and is my saint. He is my best friend, and he is what has held my family and his family, I think many of our families, together for all these years. This morning we're going to have a number of speakers speak about their relationship to John. There's different ways to hear what people say. The one thing I know, I talked to John this morning, anyway. He said, "Shel, don't screw up." So he knows me pretty well, and I think he knows all pretty well. And these people that will be speaking today will be truly talking from their heart. And so, I'd like to call on my son Dan, who was my firstborn, and when he was born, I asked John to be his godfather, and John accepted, and the perfect godfather. Thank you. John Nogue, he was my godfather, like my dad just said. He was my role model, and then later in life, he was a friend. Like my dad said, I'm a second generation Fremonter. We haven't come up with a name yet. I'm hoping that's going to stick. The kids of that group, we always took trips together, and the kids, we would all hang out while the older people did older people stuff. We truly had a great time. The trips were great fun. I was actually, though, the only boy for a while amongst a bunch of girls. And as I got older, when I was younger, that wasn't a big deal, but as I got older, John was one of the ones who would say, "You want to come join the men?" Quite pleased to join in. I loved hearing about the stories of he and my dad as they were younger, living in San Francisco and doing all this stuff. This morning I came from Clear Lake because I work at Camp Kanakta over there, where John and my dad and Bob had all worked in the past as well. I hear their names come up in stories. I hear just the ideas and the great joy that they had with each other. I loved hearing those stories. As you can tell from the audience, he was a great friend to very, very, very many people. And the last thing I would like to say is, as my dad said, he was my godfather, but he wasn't just my godfather in faith and like faith in religion. He was more just kind of the godfather of allowing me to have faith in people. He showed me to have faith in just how everybody works together and how everyone was just very kind and nice to each other. So on closing, I would just like to say thank you, John. I'll watch a game with you very, very soon. I will be watching the Giants hopefully do better. And John, I'll miss you.
Good morning. I'm Georgianne Thurston. This is my daughter, Christine Thurston Toppy, and we're representing the French side. We're cousins of John, and John's first cousin on the French side. I'm going to read this. It's the best way to get through it. John and I are first cousins on the French side. Can you hear me? Our parents, John's dad, Julien, and my mom, Allan Nogue, grew up in Oakland with their parents, John and Marie Nogue. Our grandparents immigrated to America in 1905 and started their own business shortly thereafter, Madame Nogue French Laundry. Like many Europeans that migrated to this country, they learned the language, became citizens, and started a family. They lived above the laundry. Sophie, Rebecca, and Christine, these are your great-great-grandparents. As John would say, fight on. John and I lived 2 blocks from our house in East Oakland. This was a period of time when kids could play outside for hours. Street games like kick the can, 1 foot across the gutter. Until their moms called them, literally called them aloud to come home for dinner. Remember that? All the moms could feed you lunch, bandage a wounded knee, or send you home for bad behavior. The family was everything in the 1950s. All birthdays, holidays, or important occasions were marked by an elaborate family dinner with china, linen, and crystal. These were home-cooked meals, either at Aunt Helen and Uncle Julian's house on 41st Avenue or ours on Rosedale. The guest list included our compact tribe: John, his mom and dad, my brother, my mom and dad, and our grandparents. Other guests might include godparents or friends of our parents, which were adopted and then titled auntie or uncle. A tradition of this function always marked the arrival of our 4-foot, 10-inch grandmother, carrying a pink box from the French bakery with a mocha cake inside. As children, even as teens, I do not remember us having long talks about anything. We were kids. We played games like Crazy Eggs and Fish. My brother, yes, another John, originally named Sidney. Oh, did I mention my grandfather's name was John? To add to the confusion, Uncle Julian liked to be referred to as John. So the two males baptized John, and two that did not like their given name and preferred to be named John. No confusion there. Called the name John, and most of the men looked up. After dinner, the boys would shoot hoops in the driveway, and Mom, Auntie Helen, and I would carefully clear the table and do dishes by hand. The men retired to the living room and smoked. Grandpa smoked cigars, my dad a pipe, and Uncle Julian cigarettes. I have fond memories of the French picnics, always a family affair. Our last picnic together included baby Becca, a beautiful child with dimples and sparkling blue eyes, and admired by all passerbys as she lay in her bassinet. That particular day, a warm breeze sifted through the trees. We all sat together at our picnic lunch. French music in the air, an occasional Pyrenees mountain song started by someone who remembered the words from so long ago. I would like to think of John now with his mom and dad, our grandparents, my parents, and brother together enjoying a quiet breeze and remember all of us they left behind with affection as we do this day. My love to you, John, Claire, stay and always.
Uncle John was a gem with 1,000 facets. He became my uncle when mine was taken before I could know him. He supported me through 2 years of confirmation preparations as my godfather and guide, much like Danny. As a young child, he brought me a teddy bear, which I somehow managed to lose. But when Uncle John found out, he moved heaven and earth to find a replacement, and I have his twin with me today. He has seen many tears, and he would not have missed today for the world. Uncle John was interested, supportive, and worried to the end, despite his own circumstance, with my happiness and my well-being. He is many things to many people, but irreplaceable to all of us. We love you and we miss you, but we know you're with us.
Hi, my name is Mike Garibaldi. I drove down from Oregon yesterday and I spent seven hours in the car going through everything I can possibly say about John in 3 minutes. That's all the time I have. From sharing a glass of Jameson's to smoking a cigar, which I won't get into. But it hit me. Everybody take a look at this picture. I saw this today, and it just struck me that John was bigger than life. He had a real loud voice. He had a smile on his face. He had a warm heart. He was my friend and I was his. and he had a passion. And I'm going to get into that. What I talk about is coaching. I met John in 1970. I took over San Francisco State as the water polo and swimming coach and aquatics director there. One of the things I did was put on an alumni varsity water polo game, and I met John there. He came back to those games, and I was there 3 years. And then I left and went on with my career, and John left and went on with his career. We never touched base. Fast forward 30 years. My wife and I moved from Los Angeles to Napa. They were in need of a water polo coach, boys water polo coach at Napa. So I took the job. I walk on the pool deck, and I see the girls coach there with an assistant. That assistant was John, and his 2 daughters were playing water polo. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "I know you from someplace." So we started our friendship from there. We talked about old times in water polo, and he eventually took over the girls' team, varsity team. I had the boys' team, and for the next 8 years, our goal was to beat Vintage. Now, all the things I said about John, all those characteristics that he had, loud voice, big heart, and everything, led him to be a great coach. He took the girls. Now, if you can imagine 20 girls on the pool deck in a small space, all clucking and talking, all have different agendas, and you've got to teach them not only how to swim and tread water, but to throw a ball. John was able to do that. It's very difficult. I think it's probably one of the most difficult things to do is coach a girls' sport. John was able to do it. He took a mediocre team, and over a couple of years, let's say more than a couple of years, within that 8-year period, he was able to beat Vintage and win the league. And it was great to see him do that. He had a passion. You don't make any money coaching, let me tell you. But he had a passion for the sport, and he wanted to pass that on to the girls. Not only did he pass on that passion to win and succeed, there's a carryover value of what we teach our kids that's lasting throughout their life. And hopefully they take this and apply it to all avenues of their life on how to succeed and not give up. And that's what John did. He taught them that. He also got back into water polo. I started a water polo master's team out at the college. We started playing together out there. We had the experience of going to the World Championships in Italy and playing there, which was a great experience for both of us. He went on to do swimming. We worked out at Health Quest swimming together, and I kept telling him, "John, there's this club in San Francisco that you have to go to." I'm a old-time member now. I started before gray hair, and I got John pushed him, and he went and joined the Dolphin Club, and somebody else is going to talk about that in a few minutes. So we had a friendship that I'll always have with John. I hear his voice in my head. I feel his heart in mine. And I'm going to miss him. And I'm glad I had the experience of being with him for this short period of time. So God bless you, John. I'm going to think of you every day. Thank you.
I'm Hal Offen, and it's my sad honor to have been asked to represent the Dolphin Club at this service. For those of you who don't know, the Dolphin Club is a 140-year-old boating and swimming club at Fisherman's Wharf in the city, and one of our conceits is no wetsuits. And people come for the sports, but they stay for the community, because it's the most remarkable community I've ever been part of. there's an incredible number of beloved members in the club, but few as beloved as John. When Em asked me to speak, I reached out to my fellow and sister Dolphins and asked them for their remembrances about John. And I can't possibly read all of them. I don't have that much time. I will read some. But I want to tell you some of the themes that kept emerging about John, descriptors of John. Selfless, concern for others, progressive, funny, excellent leader, outstanding athlete, swims without goggles, loving and lovable. John literally immersed himself in the club. I want to talk a little bit about his sports accomplishments. Most of us in the club, many of us, have swum from Alcatraz back to San Francisco, but not that many have done round trips where you circle to the back of Alcatraz, and John did. And I was honored and delighted that he asked me to pilot him when he did that. As you know, I think most of you know that he was part of a relay team swimming the English Channel, but one of our Dolphins, Nancy Lang, reminded me that before he did the Channel, he also did Catalina Island back to Long Beach, which is actually longer than the English Channel. And he and Nancy bonded at that event, which led eventually to Sophie moving in with Nancy for a period of time in San Francisco when she started a school at UCSF to become a nurse practitioner. He was one of our swim commissioners for several years. That's a very tough job because you are responsible for the safety of hundreds of people and planning all these swims. So it was an enormous commitment of time and energy and heart, and he did a fabulous job. Everybody, since he died, has been coming up to me and telling me what an amazing swim commissioner he was. And he also performed a wedding at the club, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. He was so beloved, he was chosen to do this. In addition to loving John, I delighted in the fact that we made each other laugh a lot. A few years ago, he and Em took a vacation to New York. So they asked me, as the resident native New Yorker, to advise them about the secrets of New York. So among the things I sent them to was an old, 100-year-old deli on the Lower East Side, Russ and Daughters, where they could purchase my favorite cookie from childhood, which was a chocolate-covered jelly graham cracker. So I heard back from John thanking me for all the recommendations and telling me that there was a gift coming my way. Well, I was so excited, thinking a pound of my favorite cookie. And John wrapped this gift up, and I opened it, and I was so thrilled. One cookie. Apparently, they liked them too. And I was lucky to get the one. So fast forward a couple of years, and John is ill, and one of our Dolphins, Rick Avery, was taking a trip to New York, and I imposed upon him to go pick up a couple of pounds of these cookies, and he did. And we went up to visit, and I had done an elaborate job of wrapping it. And John opened it up, and he was so excited. One cookie. And then I gave him the rest of the pound. I kept a pound for myself this time. John was part of our Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m. pod of swimmers who like to swim together. We had as many as 15 at times. It was a wonderful mix of gay and straight and friends who loved each other. And on this one particular day, beautiful sunny day, we swam out to the opening where you get this beautiful view of the Golden Gate Bridge. And we're bobbing in the water in a circle, about 6 of us, and Peter Cullinan thought of something, and he caught our attention, and he went around the circle, and he said, gay, 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 no gay. So let me read a few of these reminiscences about John. This from Andrew Willis. During my first Alcatraz on New Year's Day, John and I shared a boat to the island. I was nervous. John was calm and helped assuage my fears. He spoke expansively about the club and his swimming ritual. John was the first person I heard use spiritual terms to describe the bay, calling the cove his church. By the time we jumped, I felt I'd made a friend. Such was his gift for connecting with people. His passing leaves a giant hole in our community, the size of his gregarious spirit. Doug James. John and I had wonderful times as swim commissioners together. I remember going up to their home for Hanukkah parties. I felt so welcomed and included in their family circle. Of course, I have continued to feel the same way during recent visits with John. When he was in a serious state of health, we moved much closer to each other. He had no fear about asking me about my personal life. It was concern for my well-being, not merely curiosity. And from Brendan Crow. I first met John in the sauna after one of his easy 2-hour swims. Shocked that he wasn't cold and preferred no goggles. After getting to know him, he became my role model. For months, we shared the joy of Tuesday morning swims out of the cove wherever the tide would take us, which I think is illegal. In subtle ways, he guided my learning and maturity on the water, such as when he recommended not using the VHF radio to make jokes about other pilots. And eventually, he taught me the ropes of being a swim commissioner. When Lisa and I looked for someone to marry us who embodied our values, we wanted John. He and Emily have shown us an amazing, enduring love for each other. John took great joy in simple pleasures, such as a meal outdoors with friends under his fruit trees, and lived in the moment. I'm thankful to have shared many simple, glorious moments with John. I'm grateful to him for leading by example as a swim commissioner and dolphin, as a loving husband and father, and most of all, as a loving friend. We miss you, John. From Janice Wood. At the rowers' dinner, when he was already severely disabled, John went out of his way to thank me for taking care of the composting, still thinking about the club and the planet despite his personal problems. And from David Bennett. In 2015, I wanted to do an out-of-cove swim, and I knew right away that if I was going to do the swim, I was going to need John's help. I asked him. Without hesitation, he said he'd be there. He helped me plan the swim, which I had no idea how to do. He woke up at an ungodly hour for an early morning start. He hopped into a kayak in choppy waters off Point Bonita, and he stayed next to me the entire way. And from Wendy Katzman. I had a wonderful insight into John's character one afternoon at the club prior to the wedding ceremony. John, his wife and daughter were there with Brendan, Lisa, and Seth and I. We had a 2-hour conversation about life, love, swimming, work, launching our children. It was one of those times I fondly remember about the specialness of the club and our members. John was such a warm-hearted and generous man. There's an expression in Yiddish that I think of for John, which is a gita neshima, and it means a good soul. But there's another term in Yiddish that's rarely used, that I think about for John is called a Lamed Vavnik. Lamed Vav is the Hebrew number 36, and the mystical Jewish Kabbalah has a belief that at any given moment there are 36 righteous human beings on the planet, and that what they have in common is their humility, that they don't know how good they are, but their existence makes possible the entire humankind. And I think of John as a Lamed Vavnik. I want to acknowledge that Emily and Rebecca and Sophie were role models for how to cope with the unthinkable. That they opened their homes to us, their home to us, and included us in this bearing witness and being very present. They lived in the present, and every time I visited, it was uplifting. I mean, of course, we were all in pain about what we were witnessing, but there was so much love in that family, and I'll never forget it. I very much admire. It is a role model for how to cope with what you think you can't get through. I want to end with a quote from Thornton Wilder's Bridge of San Luis Rey. He said, "We ourselves shall be loved for a while and forgotten, but the love will have been enough. Even memory is not necessary for love. There is a land of the living and a land of the dead, and the bridge is love, the only survival, the only meaning." Alavai Shalom.
I'm Michael Gerlin. I was a student of John's at Solano College. I first met him in 2009 in his anatomy class. A class full of 20-something men and women all going to nursing school, going to biology, and he had this 19-year-old football player sitting up front with cleats over his shoulder. The first thing he noticed about me was my Giants baseball cap. We became fast friends after that, talking about trades and free agents, and even in the anatomy lab. That year was my last year playing. In 2010, I saw his name on the register for a bio class, and I took it right away and enjoyed every minute of it. Made amazing friends with him, as well as other students that I still talk to this day. After that, he made me his honor student, so I got to help other students learn anatomy and dissection and do my own independent study. I remember sitting in his office for hours on end at school, probably while other students were waiting outside with actual questions about the class, talking about the Giants or life. The one thing I'll remember, small office, we'd sit there, all his books, pictures of his family, and the one note, he made a bet with another professor about Edgar Renteria being MVP that year when the Giants won the World Series. He kept that note, I believe, until he retired and left his office as a reminder that he was right. He welcomed me into his classroom to teach his students and help. Several occasions left me alone with him while he went to go eat lunch in his office. When I would work with fifth graders, he graciously opened the lab to fifth graders so they can learn biology. And because of that, I took to tutoring and helping other students as well. And even after I left and went to UC Davis, he'd text me asking me how classes were going. He'd call me, "Can you believe they signed that guy?" Giants, that would be the next text coming from him. He would invite me to Giants games. We'd sit there. We'd ask what the Giants were doing if they were losing, celebrate when they were winning. I can say I was able to get this message to him while he was ill. And again, speaking like everyone else, just about his care for others. Even as ill as he was, to reach out to me after my mom passed away and tell him he was thinking of me meant a lot to me. And I could say with full certainty that I would have left football, probably gotten a job somewhere. I wouldn't have gone to school if it wasn't for him, and I wouldn't be on the path I was for him. So, thank you very much, John.
My name is Brad Pascal, and I was a colleague of John's at Solano College. Can you hear okay?
Yeah.
And I'm here to give you a snapshot of John at the college. It will, of course, be insufficient. And even though most of you did not, or may not know John from Solano College, I think you will find what I have to share very familiar. John had a strong presence wherever he was, and Solano College was no exception. In a very natural way, John had a calm and humble strength. And I can tell you that this calmness was exactly what was needed in some of the more rancorous and heated school meetings. John was the one who would respond rather than react. When others were loud and perhaps going off half-cocked, John was calm and listening, attentive. When he eventually spoke, and he almost always would at these times, he offered something measured, thoughtful, and insightful. When we needed a cool head, John led the way. I think John subscribed to the louder the voice, the softer the argument school of thought. That was John. I'm not saying that John couldn't be loud. He most certainly could be, as you know. It just depended upon the context. John was an animated presence in a classroom, usually in constant motion, gesturing with his hands. Sometimes I think he really wanted to be Italian. But he was fiercely proud of his vast heritage. Students couldn't help but be caught up in his infectious energy. On at least one occasion, John was lecturing while standing on top of a table. This particular occasion was early in his career, and he was under the routine evaluation that all new hires are. Well, probably hearing him from down the hall, the dean spontaneously walked into the room. And there's John standing on the table lecturing. He was promptly recommended for continued employment. John's presence in the classroom was driven by his deep passion for biology and an equally deep passion for sharing the biological world with his students. John routinely went beyond what was expected in the job description to create meaningful experiences for his students. And he showed me and others, by his example, how to do this job well. Not by what he espoused, but by what he did, naturally. That was John. Another setting where John could get a bit loud and animated at work was when he was telling a story. Does this sound familiar? Gesturing. John was a master storyteller, and he could easily make everyone laugh, sometimes uncontrollably. Once at Rockville Corners, which is a bar where a group of faculty would meet on Fridays after work, I saw John telling a story to several colleagues at a table. He was telling a story about when he, Emily, Rebecca, and Sophie were exploring South America and took a side trip to Easter Island. While struggling to contain his own laughter, John was telling the story. And colleague Chuck Spillner was laughing so hard he was crying. Chuck, I know you're somewhere. Not just run-of-the-mill crying, but tears streaming down the face crying. Even tough guy Ed Ray was wiping away the laughter tears. John brought laughter and levity to his colleagues, especially when they needed it the most. And that was John. John had a strong presence, and one that will continue. We will all remember John in a variety of ways. And one of the ways I will remember John is watching him standing in the middle of a creek, wearing chest waders, surrounded by his students also wearing chest waders, who were seeing something that was perhaps previously ordinary to them, but now seeing it in a whole new way. John had that gift. John took the time to work with me as a new faculty member. He was a powerful mentor. I miss him, I love him, and I hope to pass on some of the things that he taught me to some future faculty member in the future. John, thank you.
I'm Suzanne Blake Mendenhall, and this is my husband Jeff. We come from Utah. We're the Utah contingency. His mother, Helen, was a dear aunt of mine that I loved very much. I was very close to her. My mother and Helen were wonderful sisters. I have a brother, Gordon, who's now in New Caledonia, Nouméa, serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. John was very close to Gordon. John could call Gordon Gordy. No one else could call him Gordy, but John did. John did. And I also have another brother, Mark, who wished to be here today but could not come, and his wife is Kyla. I got to know the Nogues as we visited California and they came up to visit us. One time we were at Laguna Beach. My brother Gordon and I were out in the waves and we got caught in the undertow. We were taken quite a ways out. I was screaming. The waves were hitting my face and hitting the back of my head. And I kept going under and bobbing back up and screaming for help. My brother was also screaming. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know the ocean. We were young children. And who should come out but Joanne and John. And they rescued me. They kept saying, swim out, Sue, swim out. There's no way I could. The waves kept hitting me. But they came and rescued me and saved my life and my brother's life. I could tell by this family that they had a special relationship. They loved each other. And I loved coming to see them off High Street in Oakland. And I knew early on that relationships were important to John. They were a priority. You can see today. They are very important. You're here. He loved people. He loved friends and family. I was a first grade teacher. He came to my classroom. He was thinking about his daughter Rebecca going into Allan, into education. What would this look like? So he came into my classroom. It was wonderful to have him in there. We were at Em and John's marriage in Berkeley. We had fun times at Bear Lake, Lake Tahoe, Brighton, Point Reyes. I'm grateful for these wonderful times we had together. I knew of the loving relationship of John and Em for one another and for their daughters. It emulated from them. My mother died in 2010, and as she was gasping for every breath, and mostly asleep, with family all around,
She rallied and opened her blue eyes wide and grabbed my brother Gordon and said, "Family is everything." I believe families are everything, and relationships go on beyond the grave. John was a wonderful cousin to me. I didn't get to see him as much as many of you have, but I loved him. And I felt a great connection to him, and I will miss him very much.
As I was thinking about what I might say, I thought back to being married into this family, and my wife said, "You gotta meet my cousin John." Well, I met John, and I thought, well, this will be like any other first meeting. You know, you shake hands, and how are you, and who is this guy, and what, you know. No, it was, you don't meet John, you experience John. And I'm sure all of you have had that same experience. He wants to know how you are. He wants to know everything about you, and it's genuine. And it was so great every time we met to converse with him and find out what he's doing. He wanted to find out what you were doing. He wanted to talk about the Giants. I'm also a Giants fan. Not as much this year, but you know. But anyway, we had some of these great times. As we said, we were separated by many miles, 750 to be exact, as we drove here today. But I truly believe that John is having this John experience with his parents, with Uncle Howard, with Irene and Ben, and with all the others that have gone on before, who have passed through the veil. And I know that we'll have that John experience with him again in the future. Thank you.
It's nice to see everybody here today. Hi, I'm Mark Headley, and I'm here to share some stories about our friendship with John and Emily and their daughters Rebecca and Sophie here in Napa. My wife Karen and I have known the Nogue family since around 1991, when our daughters began kindergarten together, Pueblo Vista Alternative, or PVA, here in Napa. John and Emily and their young daughter Rebecca had previously been in Berkeley. John was in the early years of his career at Solano College. They wanted to buy a home, but they knew that Berkeley was really out of reach. A friend of John's from Oakland was the fire chief at the time here in Napa, and told John and Emily to consider Napa for more affordable housing and a much shorter commute to and from Solano College. John and Em soon moved to Napa with their 6-month-old daughter Rebecca, and we too moved to Napa from Oakland shortly thereafter, and our introduction came by way of our daughters starting at Pueblo Vista in kindergarten together. We got to know John and Emily and their family and many other parents in those early days at PVA, and our friendships grew, as did our families. Siblings came along and joined the group. John and Emily's daughter Sophie soon started at PVA, and it was just really nice developing a great group of friends with children all around the same age. We connected very easily, as all of our lives revolved around the kids' school, sports, and other activities. John and Emily and their girls were involved in youth soccer, as were all of us. We'd share snack duties, help with coaching, and team support in every way imaginable. It was around this time that an idea was floated to have work parties at each other's homes. Several families from PVA agreed to converge on one home every month to perform a multitude of tasks, from spring cleaning, yard work, painting, stone patios, building gates, lots of things. The work party concept lasted for many years, and The host house would provide food and refreshments. The labor and friendships were gladly given for free. John's enthusiasm for these work parties was unequaled. He loved the concept of many hands making for an easy job. The great lunches and enjoyable conversation was the icing on the cake. John, who claimed not to have a lot of do-it-yourself project expertise, would often say to the rest of us, "Just show me what you want me to do and I'll do my best." As we all know, John's best was pretty darn good. He applied himself with solid, thoughtful enthusiasm in every aspect of his life. It was nice to read an email from John's colleague who spoke wonderfully of John's establishment of the respected anatomy program and many other contributions to the biology department at Solano College. These were wonderful details about John's career that I wasn't all too familiar with, but it didn't surprise me. John's dedication to his craft and the programs he developed was unlimited. I remember stopping by their home one day for a visit. John was rinsing out the bed of his yellow Toyota pickup truck. He happily greeted us and said, "Pardon me if my truck and I smell like formaldehyde." I was transporting a cadaver from my class and leaked. It was soon after this that we read about Oakland science-based writer Mary Roach's newest book titled Stiff: Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. My wife bought the book for John. He must have thanked her a half a dozen times for it. I like to think that book was written with John in mind. Those of us who knew John knew well of his ability to be friendly, helpful, interesting, and even more so in what you were doing. Qualities that made for a wonderful husband, father, teacher, coach, mentor, and friend, which are all things that John excelled at. John was a man of varied interest and integrity, whose love of family, education, baseball, aquatic sports, and just about any new adventure was met with intelligence, grace, and enthusiasm. I really hope that our collective stories and love for this wonderful man today will help heal some of the hurt we all feel. Stay close, and like Emily says, keep John with us always, and access his spirit as our guide. Love you, John.
Hello all, I'm Bob Hansen, longtime friend of John. I'm delighted to be able to say a few words. I met John when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. As it turns out, our dads grew up together, and they were good friends after the war, and the Nogues would come over once in a while and have dinner at the Hansens. And I remember meeting this little kid, and we went out in the backyard, and we played, and it was wonderful, and they went back to their home, and I was in a different elementary school. In the sixth grade, some kids were put together in school to get special education, and I ended up in a classroom in the 6th grade with John Nogue. We grew up together, like our dads did, and we were best men in each other's weddings, as our dads were. And in many ways, we sort of had parallel lives with our dads. Not quite. My dad and Julian, when they were kids, decided to build a fort. Julian brought the wood, and my dad brought the nails. And then they had a disagreement, and my dad decided to pull all the nails out of the fort. John and I had our disagreements, but we never pulled the nails. But as a result of John, I did start writing a journal every day in order to be able to win my arguments with him about things we did previously. Still writing the journal. Probably the time that I was closest with John to really get to know him was in 1972 when we climbed in my Volkswagen bus and did a multi-week trip across the United States to go explore the USA. We were in the Smithsonian, Washington DC, New York City together, and just all kinds of experiences across the country. And it was a different, wonderful time. Just some things from that era, if you can go back there, some of us, almost all of us. An average home cost $27,000. A postage stamp was 8 cents. Average monthly rent for a house in the United States was $165. And a loaf of bread cost 25 cents, and a gallon of gas was 55 cents. And that's how a couple of young kids could drive across the country. During that trip, and actually throughout my relationship with John, I think one of the most wonderful things was his curiosity and thirst for knowledge. John was just an absorber of everything that life had to offer, experiences of every kind. And he really did live, he was a great big man. He lived great big days with a great big crowd of people, family and friends, and he had a great big life. A bit of a credo that I was asked to read, John lived by, written by Jack London, and I'd like to share it with you right now. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rock. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. I love you, John.
the flowers in the vase that you bought today. Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you playing your love songs all night long. For me, only for me. Come to me now, to me rest your head for just 5 minutes. Everything is done. Such a cozy room, the windows are illuminated by the evening sunshine through them, fiery gems for you, only for you. Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And la 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 Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And now I'll light the fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
We're all adorned with dolphin pins. I want to start by thanking the generosity and love of so many friends and family that supported John and me during these 11 months.
This list of do-gooders also includes local merchants, as well as the affiliations we are associated with, such as Solano College, Solano Land Trust, the RCD, HealthQuest, Ray's Repair, Dr. Erica Conway, both Lure, Southside, Napa Valley Unified School District, and in particular Napa High, and John's beloved Dolphin Club. We received delicious meals, beautiful cards, and emails that buoyed our spirits. Dolphin work parties that were a combination of home improvement and movable feasts. Julie and Hal's weekly sleepovers that kept us nurtured and well fed. And many caregiving activities that were punctuated by wonderful company and outings to local hunts. We would come home from a doctor visit to find flowers or cookies, or a homemade king cake, or the grass mowed, or a garden planted, or an essential Amazon delivery. A ramp got built. Our hot water heater was repaired. A leaky water pipe, both inside and outside the house, got repaired. Fixtures got hung. Locks got installed. This is just a fraction of the helping hands we received. So many, many, many acts of love and kindness that kept us feeling connected to our bigger world. For these countless good deeds, these vistas, we are forever grateful. I've been thinking about John and his huge impact on those he knew. I believe that John's special gift was that he was a man who knew what he loved to do, which is the cornerstone of having an abundance in life. Finding his personal roadmap allowed him to live passionately and experience his authentic self. His passion for teaching, coaching, swimming, traveling, recycling, protecting the earth, fish, birds, foreign language, sports, the giants, gardening, reading and keeping up with current events, leading groups, learning something new, deep conversation with friends, a good story and our joke, making connections with strangers, building relationships with local merchants, and all things family. This was real and palpable. He wished there were more time in a day to fit everything in. You wanted to be with John because he was joyful and he wanted to share his passion with you. John and I have been married 32 years, but we knew each other 42 years. Our relationship grew and improved over the years. We were each other's best friend and greatest love. I credit our growth to John's support of me, developing my interests and finding what I love to do. He expressed his delight in my joy as I pursued math and teaching. We would be genuinely grateful that our partner knew what made them happy, pursued their passion, and we would share in the other one's activities, which opened our world to new friends and new adventures. Finding your voice and following your interests and passions is something we modeled for Rebecca and Sophie, and I believe that they have taken this to heart. John and I are so proud of them and their personal roadmaps. John has forever changed us for the better. We miss him. We miss being in his company. Life is always better when John is part of the group. I know you know what I mean. And like I said to John, we were greedy for his time. Every day is an opportunity to live a life and express your love and gratitude for your loved ones and for the choice to live the life you love. John taught us, he taught this to us, and I hope to honor John by following his lead.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to speak, and I had so much I wanted to say, so instead, the three of us talked, and I'm going to read a little something from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I feel like captures the essence of my dad. What is success? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, to appreciate beauty and to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy climate, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. I just wanted to say that there aren't words to describe my dad. It just was too many things. But my sister and I are the luckiest people in the world to have him as our dad. And he was our dad. He was our best friend. He was the center of our world. So I wrote down some things that he has taught us. My dad taught us to treat all people with respect. He taught us to work hard and with integrity. He taught us to dance at weddings. He taught us to lick your plate clean after a piece of pie. My dad taught us how to swim in the ocean. He taught us to take time to look under rocks for bugs and in streams for fish. He taught us to ask questions, to remain curious, and to laugh really hard as often as possible. To chase passion and love, and most importantly, he taught us to cherish our friends and our family. We're going to miss him every single day. And we're going to be guided by his spirit. And we love you, Dad.
So before Shell makes some closing remarks, we're going to just take off just saying we're going to go home, and hopefully there'll be more stories to tell. We have lots of good food. We have Jameson's. You got to toast it. And there's directions, I think, at the back to get to our house. So I used to go to this round singing workshop, and between that and being little and coming up, we came up with a grace that we would do for our family when we would gather before a meal. And even when John was really ill, and he didn't even have words, he would put his hand up to signify that he wanted to do the grace. And so it's in your program, and I would like us all to hold hands with someone. And this tradition always included Sophie's not holding a hand, because in our tradition you always leave a spot for those who you wish were here who are missing. And it's silly, but it's ours. It goes like this. It goes, handy, 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 nice to be together, family forever. Thanks for our health and thanks for our hearts and the bounty that comes from the ground. With our loved ones here, we bless the year that brought us safely round.
I would invite you to close your eyes and bow your head. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back. Or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him. Or you can be full of love because of him. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday. Or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone. Or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back. Or you could do what he would want us to do. Smile, laugh, open your eyes, listen, love, go on, and love some more. On behalf of the family and everybody here, thank you so much for being here. The presenters, thank you for all your words.